Movement is a natural phenomenon associated with humans. And one of the most popular modes of transportation around the world is road transportation. In Nigeria, land transportation system covers about 204,000 kilometers of roads and accounts for more than 80% of the national transportation needs. But a daunting report released by the Federal Road Safety Corps indicated that there were about 5,320 road traffic crashes involving 8,808 vehicles with 2,471 deaths in the first half of 2021, sometimes as a result of bad roads. Apart from the poor infrastructure that afflicts both road and rail parts nationwide, worsening insecurity made safe travel a luxury that only a few could afford. The reign of bandits, killer headers, kidnappers, and armed robbers literally stifled interstate travel and emerging rail options. Air transport remains the safest means of transportation, but how many Nigerians can afford it, especially as the sector has been hit with aviation fuel hike? On the streets of Lagos, some Nigerians recount their experiences on the roads and railways as they could not afford the airfares.
It's not that very advisable to go on train. And, we are in a tight situation in Nigeria now, because how many citizens can afford to fly or go by air to every part of the country? So the only means of transportation presently, it has to be by road, and is on a very high risk due to the bandits and highway attacks and some other things. I think government need to wake up from their slumber and try to fix the security mess.
The road alone cannot cope. Air is not affordable for everybody. The railway was coming in to help out, but with what is happening again, it's going to be worse than square one if something is not done.
All those things that are happening on the road, like all these highway criminals, is all those roads that are not good. That is their major base, because they know that one way or the other, your car, your motor will be stuck in there.
My younger brother was a victim of road insecurity at a particular time during when these herdsmen they invaded them. They even kidnapped they kidnapped the driver. They were shooting, so like the bullets were just like rain. So my younger brother was lucky, he was alive. Then one of the passenger died. That is road transportation. Even right now, I'm scared. So the only means I think is safe is through the air, and it's not everybody that can afford that means.
I've had experience about it, and I wish someday I'll be able to be flying on air because it's not really easy traveling on the way at this time now.
The aviation sector was one of the sectors worst hit by the pandemic, causing airlines to abandon the skies and punctuating the interesting prospects of that year. The sector recorded negative growth of 36.98% in 2020 from a GDP growth of 13.2% in 2019. The rising costs of flight ticket came like a bolt out of the blues to many Nigerians due to scarcity and hike in price of aviation fuel, also known as Jet A1. Airline operators informed Nigerians that the steady rise in the price of Jet A1 has made the business near impossible for them. They said the only option left for them was to shut down operations. Nigerians, especially the elite, whose most favored means of travel is by air, were jolted. Palpable tension followed as the roads were not safe. In its bid to prevent the airlines from making good their resolve to down tools, the leadership of the House of Representatives intervened. Standing in for the Speaker, Deputy Speaker Ahmed Idris Wasai led all the principal officers and relevant committee chairmen to a meeting with stakeholders in the aviation sector on the 10th of March, but few marketers were not in attendance.
Wanted to know what is the cause for the lack of the aviation fuel, the increase more than 100% to crash the aviation fuel price to normalcy.
For everything he read out here, it was about 530 or thereabouts. 540 as the cost. How then are some people now offering us 480?
In fact, right now, you will begin or commence the process of application for your own license to be able to import your own jet fuel. So that will remove, whether it's middleman, whether it's fourth man, whether it's whatever, whether it's the vagaries of, you will know the landing cost and you will know it will assist you.
Despite intervention by the lawmakers, nothing seems to have changed. The fuel marketers remain adamant. This forced airline operators to issue a 3-day notice to ground their airplanes. Worried by the development, the House again convened another meeting the following week, this time with the fuel marketers duly represented. After more than 3 hours of deliberations behind closed doors, the ad hoc committee directed an immediate crash in the price of aviation fuel, which was about 700 naira per litre. The marketers say the increase in the price of the product was induced by the naira's decline against the dollar. After all deliberations, the meeting agreed that the product be sold at 500 naira per litre to the airline operators, but the arrangement again failed to work. Airline operators threatened another shutdown of operations, and the lawmakers again returned to a negotiation table on the 9th of May.
I have the mandate of every airline in this country to announce to you, sir, that if they can't come down from their rooftop, we have only 3 more days to be able to fly.
The meeting again agreed that the NNPC should supply aviation fuel to airline operators at 480 naira per litre.
Also engage and agree on a premium which is differs from customer to customer depending on the volume of the product you buy and then the credit limit that you are able to do. So this is one thing that they can negotiate in 3 days.
The rapid spike in the price of aviation fuel has led to the collapse of the interventions by the lawmakers. Airline operators say passengers may have to pay 100,000 naira and more for every local trip, which is about 71% higher than the cheapest option if the cost of Jet A1 remains high. According to experts, aviation fuel worldwide is said to account for about 40% of operating cost of airlines globally. But the present hike has increased the cost to about 95% in Nigeria. I visited the local wing of Murtala Muhammed International Airport in Lagos to assess the situation. It's indeed a thing of concern as Nigerians, including the airline operators and passengers, are still caught in between the hike in aviation price as well as airfares. Passengers here are lamenting. Those who spoke with TVC News stressed the need for the aviation sector to be seen as an essential service that should be given special consideration by the government.
It has gone up generally, just like everything else in the country.
People need to move to do business. I don't know how much profit people are making that they can afford to pay this kind of exorbitant airfares.
My ticket is 53,000 naira to Uyo from Lagos to Uyo. But when I was coming, I paid 55,000 naira. This is my going back to Uyo. So I think things does not supposed to be that way. So the federal government should do something about that.
The last time I bought the ticket was around 56,000, but just realized that this ticket I bought is about 96,000, 97,000. going back to Abuja. I think it's really not the best time for anybody. Unfortunately, we are just concerned about those who travel by air, but it's also very bad for others who can afford to travel by air. Everything has gone very, very high, and I think some kind of economic policy adjustment is required so that the downtrodden, the poor or the pro-poor, who eventually is at the receiving end and not further drawn into bad situation.
We just came in and they said no, that okay, by 1 o'clock the flight has been rescheduled for 4. So I wonder what I'll be doing with the kids for like 2 hours in the airport, running all up and down and chasing them to control them. You understand? And even when I raised I raised an alert to one of the officers or the airline staff, they said there's nothing they can do about it. I have to wait. And that is all. And, we didn't plan because the kids never ate. And we're thinking, okay, we'll get where we're going to and then, we'll have lunch and all that. And we have to be at the airport till evening. So, which means the dinner met us on the way. You understand? It's quite disappointing and very distressful.
Passengers in Abuja also expressed concern about the disturbing hike in airfares and Jet A1.
It's really very difficult for us as customers to deal with some of the expenses.
Affecting people's pockets. You budget say in the next 2-3 months, you have a program to do, spend to and fro 60,000 to 70,000 naira. You end up spending that amount for one way. So we request that government should look into it.
Coming from Lagos now, it used to be 28, 30,000, but now it's almost 50-something thousand. So it's actually, we are feeling the pinch.
A sudden surge in the price of flights, and you don't have an alternative considering the security situation in Nigeria.
Flight tickets are high, delays and traffics, I'm sure, a consequence of the high aviation fuel. And, managing, cutting short our travels and, making sure every trip is worth it, and hoping for the best.
Deputy CEO Dana Airline Sukhjinder Man, while speaking on the way forward for the airline operators, said they didn't see the massive rise of the aviation fuel coming. He said Airline Operators of Nigeria, AON, is seriously looking at the option of airline operators to be issued license to import aviation fuel to ease their operations.
We can't always pass on the price rises to the consumer because there is a certain ceiling fare. If we go above, the demand will evaporate, and that's not good for the industry. So firstly, the shock to the system was great. Secondly, we're working towards keeping our cost base competitive and our fares competitive. But it's been a difficult task, I have to admit. As business people, we have to react to the market. I mean, the fuel price is driven by market events, the Russia-Ukrainian war, obviously factors beyond anybody's control to a large degree. Nigeria is unique in some regards. Of course, the general spike in the Jet A1 price is global. But, it's been compounded in Nigeria by the fact that the way it's distributed, the logistics of the supply. Number one, the quantity of supply, and number two, the methods of distribution. And I think that's further compounded the issue to Nigeria specifically. I do think we should leave it to the market, is my personal opinion. And I think the government could help intervene with larger quotas for the sector and intervene with the actual quantity of imports itself rather than the distribution. I think that would stop the bottleneck and I think would reduce the spike in prices somewhat. Okay. Again, we're an airline, we're not an import or distribution company. And we would like to focus on our core fundamentals. But that's an option that's on the table, but I think it's a remote option at this stage. We'll pay. Now, if there's any further shocks in the price to the upside, of course, we're going to have to look at the business model again.
Man hopes the price will stabilize in a short while, as the 100,000 airfares is certainly not where the industry would want to go, calling on the government for more collaboration.
I wouldn't like to see prices at 100K, to be honest. I don't think that's fair to the Nigerian consumer. They rely on aviation in this country because of the various other challenges. insecurity by road, etc., etc. So aviation is a key sector. It's a very strategic sector for Nigeria, and I would be very disappointed to see prices go further. I think the first thing that carriers do is look at their network, and where we used to fly speculative routes where it was borderline break-even or profitable, we've kind of scaled back our network to focus on the trunk routes, our more established routes, because we cannot take the risk of flying empty or below break-even. So the first thing you'll see in the industry is a reduction in capacity, and that basically means seats available, okay, to the consumer. So if that's one way of eliminating the risk and reducing our cost base, we want to fly less, but we want to fly fuller, obviously because the cost of the operation has also gone up. But I'm hoping these effects will be short term. My only plea would be that the government, if they could allocate more resources or more product to our sector and ease the bottlenecks of getting getting it to the aircraft, the distribution process, I think that would go a long way. We talk about subsidies. I think because this is an extreme situation brought about by circumstance, the war, as we've mentioned, I think there should be some kind of temporary intervention by the government in terms of pricing, just to protect the sector. We don't want airlines to go out of business. We work in a very fierce competitive market, but none of us want to see another carrier go out of business because the market is big enough in Nigeria. In fact, we could do with more aircraft. Nigeria needs to be connected, and I think right now the most plausible solution is air travel across the country. So, I'm hoping it's short term. I'm hoping that the government would see the stress that the sector's in and offer some kind of palliative.
All right, so that will be all.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for your time. Thank you.
Olumide Ohunayo is an aviation analyst. He speaks on the implication and possible solution to the hike in aviation fuel.
Contamination is you cannot joke with it for the air transport. It's enough for road transport, how it knocks down engines, but you cannot try that with the airlines. You know what, that would be very fatal. And for the airlines, one accident makes it look like 15 accidents on the major road. So I think it's a very good question if ask me. The industry is not joking with that contamination because it creeps into safety and might be dangerous for the industry, and that demarcates the industry. So we've never given room to it, and everybody's on their toes. That's why we don't. It's not all marketers are involved. It's like a conglomerate. They know themselves. They have all the checks and balances in place, and it's not being toyed with. When you increase about 100 and something thousand, I have only 6 or 7 passengers. It's not profitable. So there's a delicate balance here, and that's why they're fighting not to increase, so not to discomfort Nigerians, but to have more people flying. And as more people fly, everybody smiles, both the passengers, the airlines, the regulator, the government agencies, because taxes are being paid as people fly. So I think by and large, I want to see them, the airlines and the government work together and see how they can temporarily, because what we have now is an energy crisis that is not peculiar to Nigeria. And because it's not peculiar to Nigeria, there's a need for the government agencies involved in the oil importation and delivery to see whatever charges that can be removed temporarily so that the price can be reduced for this period of this energy crisis. It's the consumers worldwide that are suffering from it, and then see how the airlines and passengers can still fly safely, considering that we are the alternative mode of transport is not even enduring to anybody at this point in time.
At the moment, the airline operators do not have so many options at the moment, but what can be done is to actually work together with the regulator, with NCA, which is a regulator, to ensure a safe operation of the domestic airline operations. How then we have to actually leverage on that communication and meeting with the NMPC, because like the group NMPC managing director rightly said, we have about 19 companies and 88 million liters. So if we have 88 million liters of Jet A1 available, it's been able to talk to the marketers and reach a considerable negotiation on the right pricing, because we understand that they actually are hindered and inhibited by Forex as well, and the challenges of sourcing Forex, which is a major reason why the price of these Jet A1 has increased over the last few weeks.
Oil and gas analyst Balazaka disagrees that Russian and Ukraine war is the reason for the hike in aviation fuel. He said it's rather due to lack of planning and visionary leadership. He also said the idea of airlines operators to be issued license to import should be discouraged.
Nigeria is suffering from energy crisis purely because of planning. We have the crude oil here. Aviation fuel is one of the many derivatives of crude oil refining. All we need to do is to get the crude oil from the wellhead in Naira, move it to the respective refineries, either using trains or wagons or trucks in Naira, refine it in Naira, sell to Nigerians in Naira, generate our Naira. The first thing that will do is it will free us from what we call exchange rate differentials and pressures. We had in those days that Nigeria used to export Georges, probably to the Gambia and the rest. And that was why people like me felt the current generation of leaders have truly detached from the philosophy of our leaders of old. Meanwhile, our previous generation of leaders were largely less educated. Most of them were probably secondary school cert holders, certificate holders, a few degree holders. But today we have more universities, we have more educated people, but Nigeria appears to be sinking in terms of the economy, heading towards the cliff, and the economy appears to want to fall into the valley, which is very, very unfortunate. How can you be having beans, then you will be going out to buy moi moi and akara? It's like you thinking you will go anti-gravity and still be able to survive. It's not possible. So whether it is the Petroleum Industry Act that has clauses that will predicate the deregulation of prices of downstream products based on imports, it should be discouraged. Because the reason why imports must not be encouraged in any way is because, first of all, Nigeria has a very, very weak currency.
Fuel prices have continued to rise in the global market since world powers began to impose sanctions on Russia after its invasion of Ukraine in February. Experts say in the face of the global challenge, Nigeria must look inwards and come up with urgent solutions to prevent the situation in the aviation sector from deteriorating.